The email arrived while I was organizing files in my cubicle. Mandatory meeting in conference room A, all accounting staff. I glanced at my sister Sarah's office, her nameplate gleaming with Senior Financial Manager, while mine read simply Account Coordinator. She caught my eye through the glass walls and smirked, adjusting her designer blazer. I was used to her condescension. Ever since I chose to start working right after high school instead of going to college like her, Sarah had treated me like I was beneath her. When she helped me get an entry-level position at her company 2 years ago, she made sure everyone knew it was charity for my uneducated sister. What I never told her was that while she spent 4 years getting her finance degree, I'd been taking online courses in forensic accounting and computer security. My entry-level position was perfect for what I really wanted to learn: how money actually flowed through major corporations. The conference room was packed when I arrived. Sarah stood at the front with our CEO, Mr. Richardson, looking grave. "We've discovered significant discrepancies in our accounts," she announced. $50,000 is missing, and we traced the unauthorized access to someone in this room. My heart started pounding as she clicked to the next slide, showing login records from my employee ID. "The evidence is clear," she continued, her voice dripping with fake regret. "My own sister, who I gave a chance to spite her, limited qualifications, has betrayed that trust." Security guards appeared at the door as Sarah's words hung in the air. "We've already contacted the police," she added. "Though I'm willing to show mercy if you confess now, Lisa." I stayed silent, my hands steady as I gathered my belongings. I'd seen this coming for weeks, the way Sarah had been asking me to cover extra shifts, insisting I use her computer since mine was being upgraded. I documented everything, including the keylogger I discovered installed on my workstation last week. As security escorted me out, Sarah's voice carried down the hallway. "I guess it's true what they say about uneducated people. They always resort to stealing." What Sarah didn't know was that I'd been quietly building my case for months. The day she helped me get hired, I noticed irregularities in the company's books, patterns that suggested long-term embezzlement. I'd started tracking everything, watching as small discrepancies grew into larger ones, all leading back to one source: my perfect, educated sister. I spent that evening in my apartment, not crying as Sarah probably expected, but organizing my evidence. The keylogger she planted had been child's play to detect and document. I let it stay, curious to see her next move. Sure enough, she used it to frame me for transfers she'd been making for years. My phone rang around midnight, a number I didn't recognize. "Ms. Lisa Thompson, this is Charles Richardson." The CEO's voice was different from his office persona, sharper, more focused. "I saw something interesting on our security cameras today. Something about your sister installing software on your computer last week. Would you be willing to meet me tomorrow morning?" I smiled, thinking of the evidence folder on my encrypted drive. "Of course, Mr. Richardson. I have some things you might want to see as well." The next morning, I arrived at a small cafe far from the office. Mr. Richardson was already there, along with a woman he introduced as Deanna Chen from Corporate Security. "We've been investigating financial irregularities for months," Diana explained. "But someone was always one step ahead, covering their tracks. Until you arrived." I pulled out my laptop. 2 years ago, Sarah helped me get hired because she needed access to a clean employee ID for larger transfers. She'd been skimming small amounts for years, but she was getting greedy. She didn't think her uneducated sister would notice the patterns. Diana's eyes widened as I walked them through my documentation. Years of suspicious transfers, all technically authorized but just irregular enough to raise flags if you knew where to look. Sarah's perfect record had protected her from surface-level audits, but she'd gotten sloppy once she thought she had me as a scapegoat. "The police are already investigating," Mr. Richardson said quietly. "But we needed this: proof of premeditation, documentation of her methods. The hidden camera footage of her installing that keylogger was damning. But this," he gestured at my carefully organized evidence, "this shows the whole pattern." I nodded and played my final card. "There's something else you should see." I pulled up records of identical patterns at Sarah's previous 2 employers, smaller amounts but the same methods. "I think you'll find she's been doing this for quite a while." My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "I hope you're happy living on unemployment. No one will hire a thief." I shoved it to Mr. Richardson, who actually chuckled. "She still has no idea. Does she? My sister always assumed that without a college degree, I was stupid, I replied. She never bothered to check what I was actually learning all these years. That afternoon, Sarah was arrested at her desk. I watched from Mr. Richardson's office as she was escorted out, screaming about mistakes and family loyalty. Her designer blazer didn't look quite so impressive with handcuffs as an accessory. The evidence was overwhelming. The keylogger she'd installed had captured her own logging credentials, which she'd used to make transfers under my name. The hidden cameras showed her accessing my computer after hours, and my documentation provided the historical pattern that turned a single instance of fraud into a career-long crime spree. As Sarah was led away, I received another text, this time from our mother. How could you do this to your sister? She gave you a job when no one else would. I didn't respond. They'd never believed in me anyway. Mr. Richardson cleared his throat. Miss Thompson, we find ourselves in need of a new senior financial manager, someone with experience in forensic accounting and a demonstrated ability to detect fraud. Would you be interested? I thought of Sarah's nameplate, her designer clothes, her constant reminders of my limited qualifications. I'd need to finish my certification first, I replied. I'm only 2 classes away. He smiled. Take all the time you need. The position will be waiting. That evening, as I packed up Sarah's office, now mine, I found a photo from her college graduation. She was beaming at the camera, holding her diploma like a shield. She'd spent years building an image of success while slowly stealing from every company that trusted her. I'd spent those same years actually learning, growing, preparing. The next text from Sarah came from county jail. You have to help me. I'm your sister. I placed her graduation photo in a box with her nameplate and designer blazer. The police would probably want them as evidence. No, I typed back. I don't have to do anything. Educated people should know better than to commit fraud. Then I sat down at my new desk, opened my laptop, and started reviewing the company's security protocols. There was work to be done, and I'd earned my place at the table, no degree required. Updates from the prosecutor's office arrived regularly over the next few weeks. Sarah's previous employers were pressing charges, her perfect reputation crumbling as each new investigation uncovered more theft. Our parents, finally forced to face the truth about their golden child, stopped offending her and stopped attacking me. Mr. Richardson implemented every security recommendation I made, and the board approved a complete overhaul of our financial monitoring systems. I still attended my online classes, but now the company was paying for them. Turns out experience and skill matter more than how you got them. Sarah's preliminary hearing was scheduled for next month. Her lawyer had reached out, suggesting I speak on her behalf about our close family bond. I declined. The evidence would speak for itself, just as it had all along. My new nameplate arrived today. Lisa Thompson, Senior Financial Manager and Security Compliance Director. Not bad for someone who chose a different path to success. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about proving them wrong all along. Sarah's preliminary hearing fell on a rainy Tuesday morning. I sat in the back of the courtroom, watching my sister shuffle and wearing an orange jumpsuit instead of her usual designer clothes. She'd lost weight in county jail, and her carefully maintained highlights were showing dark roots. When she spotted me, she mouthed, "Please help me," but I kept my face neutral and opened my laptop to take notes. The evidence presentation took hours. Deanna Chen testified of the security footage, walking the court through clips of Sarah installing the keylogger after hours. The forensic accountant I'd hired presented my documentation, now expanded with records from her previous employers. Each slide showed the same pattern. Small discrepancies growing larger, all traced back to Sarah's access credentials. During a break, our mother approached me in the hallway. She looked older than I remembered, her confident posture replaced by a worried slouch. "Lisa, please," she begged. "Sarah made a mistake, but she's still your sister. If you speak as a character witness, maybe." "A mistake?" I interrupted quietly. "She stole over $200,000 from 3 different companies. She tried to frame me for it. She would have let me go to jail, Mom. That's not a mistake. That's who she is. But she helped you get a job. Without her, I would have found another way to succeed. I always do." I gathered my belongings. She didn't help me get that job out of kindness. She needed someone to take the fall when she got caught. The only mistake she made was underestimating me. Back in the courtroom, Sarah's lawyer tried arguing that her previously exemplary character should be considered. The prosecutor countered by playing the security footage audio of Sarah mocking my education while setting me up to take the blame. The judge's expression hardened with each recording. "Your Honor," Sarah's lawyer attempted, "my client's sister holds a senior position at the company now. Surely that demonstrates the family's commitment to." "Ms. Thompson earned that position by uncovering your client's crimes," the prosecutor interrupted. "The same crimes Ms. Sarah Thompson tried to pin on her sister because she assumed no one would believe someone without a college degree." Sarah crumbled visibly at that, finally seeing how completely her plan had backfired. The preliminary hearing ended with her case bound over for trial, bail denied due to flight risk. As she was led away, she called out, "Lisa, I'm sorry. I didn't mean." I packed up my laptop and left without looking back. The next few months brought changes I never expected. Mr. Richardson promoted me to Vice President of Financial Security, creating a new department focused on preventing exactly the kind of fraud Sarah had committed. My story spread through industry circles, leading to consulting requests from other companies wanting to audit their security protocols. Sarah's former colleagues, who'd once looked down on me at her urging, now sought my advice on career development. "College isn't the only path to success," I told them. "It's about what you learn, not where you learn it." The prosecution offered Sarah a plea deal, 15 years with possibility of parole after 7, in exchange for a full confession. She took it, probably hoping to maintain some control over the narrative. But her confession revealed even more than we'd known. She'd started stealing in college, using student organization funds to maintain her expensive lifestyle. After graduation, she refined her methods, always staying just ahead of detection, until she decided to set me up as her fall guy. The day of her sentencing, I finally agreed to meet her in the holding cell. She clearly practiced her speech, tears falling perfectly as she spoke. "I was jealous," she admitted. "You were always so capable, making your own way, learning what you wanted. I had to follow Mom and Dad's perfect plan, get the perfect degree, live the perfect life. But it was never enough. So you decided to steal what you couldn't earn," I finished, "and blame it on me because you thought no one would believe I could catch you." "I'm your sister," she whispered. "Doesn't that mean anything?" I stood up. "It meant something when you helped me get hired. It meant something different when you tried to send me to prison. Now it just means I know exactly who you are." The judge sentenced her to the agreed-upon 15 years plus restitution. Our parents sat in the front row, finally accepting that their perfect daughter had built her success on lies. They tried to approach me after the sentencing, but I had a meeting to attend. That meeting changed everything. A major financial security firm had heard about my work on Sarah's case. They wanted to partner on developing fraud detection software based on my methodologies. The contract would make me a millionaire several times over. "We love that you learned this through experience," the CEO told me. "Anyone can follow textbook methods. You found patterns others missed because you looked where they didn't think to look." As I signed the contract, my phone buzzed with a message from the prison. Sarah had lost her appeal. She wanted me to help fund her commissary account since our parents couldn't afford to support her anymore. I deleted the message without responding. Later that week, I got an interesting email from Sarah's last victim, her previous employer. Their audit had revealed that she'd hidden some of her stolen funds in overseas accounts. They wanted to hire me to trace the money. The fee they offered would cover a down payment on the house I'd been eyeing. I took the job, of course. Let Sarah sit in prison, knowing that with every case I solved, every fraud I uncovered, I was building the career she tried to steal from me. Her perfect degree hung on a prison wall, while my experience opened doors she never even knew existed. Our parents finally stopped trying to contact me after I blocked their numbers. They'd spent years praising Sarah's academic achievements while dismissing my practical experience. Now they could spend years visiting her in prison while reading about my success in the financial press. 5 years after Sarah's arrest, I stood at a podium accepting an industry award for innovation in financial security. My online degree hung in my office alongside certificates from specialized training programs, proof that education comes in many forms. A reporter asked about my unusual career path. "Success isn't about where you start," I told her. "It's about paying attention, learning constantly, and being ready when opportunity appears." Sometimes the best opportunities come disguised as someone else's attempt to destroy you. Sarah still writes sometimes through the prison email system. She's teaching other inmates about finance, she says. Claims she's changed. Maybe she has. But her last email caught my attention. I'll be up for parole in 2 years. I've learned so much from my mistake. Maybe you could hire me. Give me a chance I once gave you. I archived the email without responding. Some lessons take longer to learn than others. Sarah taught me that family isn't about blood. It's about trust. She broke that trust, and all the degrees in the world can't repair it. My new fraud detection software launches next month. It's designed to catch exactly the kind of schemes Sarah used to commit. In the end, her attempt to destroy me gave me the knowledge to help others protect themselves. That's a kind of justice even she couldn't steal. The company's annual report came out yesterday. There's a whole section about our new security protocols, complete with a photo of me at my desk. No designer clothes, no fake smile. Just the quiet confidence of someone who knows exactly what she's worth. Sarah will probably see it in the prison library. I wonder if she'll finally understand that she never gave me a chance. She gave me a target, and I've spent every day since then proving that the best revenge isn't just success. It's success they never saw coming.
You're just taking up space here. Mom's words echoed through our cramped apartment as she gestured at my makeshift office corner. 26 years old and still living at home, playing with your computer games. I glanced at my triple monitor setup, where complex real estate analytics and property development algorithms ran 24/7. Not exactly games, but trying to explain blockchain-based property investment to my mother was like teaching quantum physics to a goldfish. I'm working, Mom, I said quietly, watching as another property acquisition alert flashed across my screen. And I pay rent. Rent. She laughed bitterly. That pittance you call rent barely covers your portion of utilities. Meanwhile, your sister Jennifer is a real estate agent, showing actual properties to actual people. Jennifer. The golden child who sold overpriced condos to desperate millennials while I quietly built the largest digital real estate investment platform in the country. Not that my family knew about Phoenix Property Solutions or its billion-dollar portfolio. Speaking of rent, Dad chimed in from his recliner, eyes glued to the TV. It's going up again. That corporate firm downtown keeps buying up everything. Third increase this year. I suppressed a smile. Phoenix Property Solutions, my company, had indeed been acquiring properties throughout the city, including, as of this morning, the very building we lived in. Maybe if Sophie got a real job instead of playing entrepreneur, Mom continued, we could afford a better place. Jennifer's offered to help us find something. I have a job, I muttered, minimizing the screen showing my company's latest acquisition, a $500 million office complex downtown. Typing on computers isn't a job. Mom threw her hands up. Jennifer closed 3 houses last month. What have you done? Closed a $2.3 billion deal in commercial real estate, actually. But they didn't need to know that. Yet. My phone buzzed. Marcus, my CEO calling. Boss, the Henderson Complex papers are ready. You now own 60% of the city's residential units, including this building. Thanks, Marcus. Schedule the tenant notifications for tomorrow. All of them. He knew which building I lived in. Knew why this mattered. Every single one. Mom was still ranting about Jennifer's success when my laptop pinged. The official transfer of ownership was complete. In less than 12 hours, they'd learned that their waste of space daughter owned their home. I'm going out, I announced, closing my laptop. Work meeting. Work. Mom scoffed. You mean another coffee shop with your computer? I looked down at my deliberately modest clothes, hiding the Chanel underneath. Something like that. The coffee shop was actually my penthouse office downtown, overlooking the city I was slowly acquiring. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a perfect view of my growing real estate empire, including the apartment complex where my parents still treated me like a failed entrepreneur. Ms. Mitchell. Marcus entered with a stack of papers. The tenant notifications are ready for your signature, including the one for apartment 4B. My parents' apartment. And the rent increases? As discussed. 40% across the board, except for elderly and low-income residents. He hesitated. Are you sure about this? I picked up the notification letter addressed to Robert and Patricia Mitchell. They wanted me to get a real job. To make something of myself. To stop taking up space. I signed with my executive pen, the one that cost more than their monthly rent. Well, now I own their space. Your sister Jennifer has been calling, Marcus added. Apparently she's trying to get exclusive listing rights for Phoenix properties. She doesn't realize that she's trying to work for her little sister? I laughed. Let her submit a proposal like everyone else. Though her success rate might not meet our standards. I spent the evening reviewing my empire's latest acquisitions. While Mom and Dad watched TV, probably still complaining about their unemployed daughter, I was orchestrating property deals worth billions. The next morning, right on schedule, the building manager knocked on every door, delivering the news about the ownership change and rent increases. I waited in the lobby, dressed in my real clothes now, designer suit, Louboutin heels, power blazer. The security cameras gave me a perfect view of every reaction. 4B. My parents' apartment. Knock. Knock. Mom opened the door, still in her robe. Yes. Mrs. Mitchell? I have some news about the building. It's been acquired by Phoenix Property Solutions. Here's your new lease terms and an eviction notice. Eviction. Her voice carried through the security feed. But we've lived here for 20 years. The new owner is restructuring the building. Your unit is scheduled for premium renovation. However, he checked his tablet. Ms. Sophie Mitchell, the CEO, has offered to review special cases personally. Sophie Mitchell. Mom's face went pale. What do you mean, CEO? That was my cue. The click of my heels echoed through the lobby as I approached their apartment. Mom stood frozen in the doorway, her hand clutching the eviction notice like a lifeline. Behind her, Dad had emerged from his recliner, his morning coffee forgotten. Good morning, Mom, I said pleasantly, adjusting my Cartier watch, the one she'd called a cheap knockoff last week, not realizing it cost more than their annual rent. Having a nice morning? Sophie. She stared at my transformation. Gone were the modest clothes and quiet demeanor, replaced by the CEO who'd been secretly buying up half the city. What is this? This. I plucked the eviction notice from her trembling hands. This is business. Real business. Not the kind Jennifer does, showing overpriced starter homes to desperate couples, but actual large-scale property development and investment. But, you're always just on your computer. Dad stammered from behind her. Yes, managing my multi-billion-dollar real estate empire. Those computer games you love to mock? Property acquisition algorithms. Investment analytics. Digital real estate platforms that process more money in a day than Jennifer makes in a year. The building manager James, who'd worked for me for 3 years without my parents ever knowing, stood professionally to the side, tablet ready. Should I continue with the notifications, Ms. Mitchell? He asked. Please do. And make sure everyone knows about the community meeting tonight. I'll be announcing the building's renovation plans. I smiled at my parents. All residents are welcome. Even those being evicted. Evicted? Mom's voice cracked. Your own parents? Taking up space apparently, I quoted her words back. Isn't that what you said last night? That I was just taking up space. Dad finally found his voice. But where will we go? Everything in the city is owned by. His face dropped as realization hit. By you. Phoenix Property Solutions owns 60% of residential properties in the metropolitan area, I confirmed, enjoying their growing comprehension. Those rent increases you've been complaining about? My company's policy. The corporate firm downtown? That's me. The luxury renovations happening across the city? All mine. Mom sank against the doorframe. All this time, you were living in my building complaining about your unemployed daughter, while I was becoming your landlord. I checked my phone as it buzzed. Another acquisition alert. Oh, look at that. We just closed on the Henderson block. Jennifer's been trying to get listings there for months. As if summoned by her name, my sister's voice carried down the hallway. Mom? Dad? What's going on? The whole building's talking about eviction notices. Jennifer rounded the corner, her realtor badge prominently displayed, and stopped short at the scene. Her eyes darted between my executive attire, our shell-shocked parents, and James's tablet displaying Phoenix Property Solutions logo. Sophie. She blinked rapidly. Why are you dressed like the CEO I am? I finished for her. The same CEO whose company you've been desperately trying to get listing rights from? How's that proposal coming, by the way? I believe our standards require at least a 85% success rate on luxury properties. You're at what, 40%? Her face flushed. That's not. You own Phoenix. Phoenix Property Solutions, Phoenix Development Group, Phoenix Digital Real Estate Platform. I listed off my companies. Oh, and as of this morning, the Henderson block you've been calling about. Though I doubt you'll be getting those listings now. But you're my little sister, she protested. You can't. Can't what? Own the building our parents live in? Control the properties you're trying to sell? Be more successful than the golden child. I turned to James. Please show my sister out. And make sure she understands that Phoenix properties are no longer available to her agency. As security escorted a protesting Jennifer away, I faced my parents again. The eviction notice gives you 30 days. I'd start packing. Wait. Mom reached for my arm. We can talk about this. We're family. Family. I raised an eyebrow. Like when you called my work worthless. When you compared me to Jennifer every day. When you said I was wasting my life on computers. Dad stepped forward. Sophie, please. We didn't know. That's the problem, isn't it? You never bothered to know. Too busy praising Jennifer's mediocre real estate career to notice I was building an empire. I checked my watch again. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a meeting about acquiring the rest of downtown. As I turned to leave, Mom called out desperately, "Where are we supposed to go?" I paused, then reached into my briefcase. Here's a list of available properties in your price range. Don't worry, I don't own these ones. Yet. The elevator doors opened silently. I'd had them recently upgraded. Another improvement they'd attributed to the mysterious corporate owners. Oh, and Mom. I called back. Thanks for telling me to get a real job. Running a billion-dollar company is much more satisfying than taking up space here. The community meeting that evening was set in the building's newly renovated conference room, another upgrade my parents had never questioned. I sat at the head of the glass table, watching through the security feeds as residents filed in, clutching their notices and whispering among themselves. My parents entered last, looking smaller somehow. Mom had changed into her best dress. Probably the same one she wore to Jennifer's real estate award ceremony last year, where she'd loudly lamented my absence. She didn't know I'd been there in the VIP section, finalizing the purchase of the very building the ceremony was held in. Good evening, I began, standing in my power suit that cost more than 3 months of their rent. I'm Sophie Mitchell, CEO of Phoenix Property Solutions. Some of you may know me as Robert and Patricia Mitchell's unemployed daughter from 4B. The ripple of recognition through the crowd was almost physical. Neighbors who'd nodded sympathetically during Mom's rants about my wasted potential now stared wide-eyed between me and my parents. Over the next 6 months, this building will undergo a complete luxury renovation, I continued, clicking through professional renderings on the presentation screen. Current market value of units will triple. Unfortunately, this means most current leases will be terminated. But we can't afford triple rent, someone called out. I'm aware, I replied coolly. Which is why we've prepared relocation packages. Elderly residents will be offered subsidized units in our senior living complex. Low-income families will have priority access to our affordable housing properties. I paused, looking directly at my parents. Others will need to find new accommodations. Marcus appeared at my side with another stack of documents. The Henderson property papers are ready for your signature, Ms. Mitchell. And your sister Jennifer is in the lobby again. Tell her my assistant's assistant will be happy to explain why her listings have been revoked, I said loudly enough for my parents to hear. Now about the renovation timeline. For the next hour, I detailed plans that would transform their home into luxury apartments. Each announcement felt like a personal victory. The rooftop garden Mom had always dreamed of but would never enjoy, the premium appliances Dad had said were a waste of money, the smart home technology they dismissed as unnecessary gadgets. Ms. Mitchell, our elderly neighbor Mrs. Chin raised her hand. I've lived here for 30 years. And you'll be personally escorted to your new unit in Phoenix Seniors Haven, I assured her. Complete with medical facilities and a view of the park. My parents used to say I never cared about community, I added, watching Mom flinch. They were wrong about that too. The meeting continued with a mix of protests, pleading, and practical questions. Through it all, my parents sat silently, watching their daughter command the room with the authority they'd never believed she possessed. One final announcement, I said as the meeting drew to a close. Phoenix Property Solutions is launching a new digital real estate platform next month. We're revolutionizing how properties are bought, sold, and managed. Those worthless computer games are now worth $4.3 billion. Dad's coffee cup clattered against its saucer. For those interested, there's a waiting list for our new developments. Though I should mention, I smiled directly at my parents, the application process is quite selective. We don't want anyone just taking up space. As the residents filed out, my parents remained seated, looking lost in the pristine conference room that symbolized everything they'd failed to see coming. Sophie, Mom started, her voice small. We didn't know. Obviously, I cut her off, organizing papers I didn't need to organize. You were too busy bragging about Jennifer's commission checks to notice I was buying the city out from under her. But why didn't you tell us? Dad asked. Tell you. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Like when I tried to explain blockchain real estate trading and you said I was playing pretend business. Or when I bought my first building and Mom said I was wasting time with computer nonsense, instead of getting my real estate license like Jennifer. Marcus appeared again. Ms. Mitchell, the Tokyo investors are on the line about the international expansion. Perfect timing, I said, standing. Mom, Dad, you can see yourselves out. You know the way for the next 30 days at least. Wait, Mom called desperately. What about Jennifer? Her business depends on Phoenix Properties. Jennifer's business depends on her ability to meet our standards, I corrected. Which she doesn't. Maybe she should have spent less time mocking my computer games and more time improving her success rate. But she's your sister. And I'm your daughter, I replied sharply. The one you said was wasting her life. The one you told to stop taking up space. Well, now I own your space. Funny how life works out, isn't it? I gathered my things, watching their reflection in the floor-to-ceiling windows. They looked old suddenly, their assumptions about success and their daughters crumbling around them. The eviction notice isn't just about business, I admitted quietly. It's about space. My space. The space you never thought I deserved. The space I created for myself while you were busy doubting me. We're sorry, Dad whispered. The Thanksgiving dinner at my parents' house was going exactly as expected. My brother Thomas showcasing his investment banking success while belittling my career choices. So, little brother, Thomas smirked over his wine glass, still working those long hospital shifts? What is it now, resident? Junior attending. I calmly cut into my turkey, used to his condescension. After all, he was the family's golden child, Harvard MBA, Morgan Stanley executive, and self-proclaimed financial genius. I was just the doctor who'd spent the last 15 years studying medicine and working my way through every level of hospital operations. Chief of emergency medicine now, I replied quietly. Mom beamed at Thomas. Honey, tell everyone about your new summer house in the Hamptons. Oh yes, he grinned, just closed the deal. 7 bedrooms, private beach. Cost more than Alex will make in 10 years of playing doctor. Dad nodded approvingly. That's my boy. Always thinking big. Speaking of which, did you hear about Metropolitan Hospital's financial troubles? My ears perked up, though I kept my expression neutral. Metropolitan was where I worked. Or rather where I appeared to work. Oh yes, Thomas practically purred. Word on Wall Street is they're ripe for takeover. My firm's actually preparing a bid. Going to restructure the whole thing, cut all that wasteful spending on charity care and research. How fascinating, I murmured, checking my phone discreetly. The message I'd been waiting for had just arrived. Acquisition complete. Paperwork filed. You should get out while you can, Alex, Thomas continued. Once my firm takes over, we'll be trimming the fat. No room for soft-hearted doctors who waste time on poor patients. Mom patted my hand sympathetically. Maybe Thomas could find you a position at one of his friend's private practices? I'm comfortable where I am, I replied. Comfortable? Thomas scoffed. You're barely making 6 figures while I clear 7 every month. Still driving that old Honda too, I noticed. Meanwhile, my new Porsche. How's the hospital's board meeting going? I interrupted, knowing exactly what was happening across town. What? Thomas frowned. How would you know about— Wait, how do you know about the board meeting? Just curious, since you're planning to take over and all. He laughed. Private equity business, little brother. Way above your pay grade. The board's voting on our proposal right now. By dinner's end, Metropolitan will be mine to restructure. Right on cue, my phone buzzed. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. Excuse me, I said, I need to take this call. Problems with a patient's insurance? Thomas smirked. That'll be changing soon under new management. I stepped into the hallway, had a brief conversation, then returned to the dining room. Mom was serving dessert while Thomas regaled everyone with his takeover plans. First thing to go will be that ridiculous free clinic program, he was saying. Then we'll cut research funding. Hospitals should treat patients, not play scientist. And of course we'll need to trim staff. Interesting plan, I said, sitting back down. But there might be a small problem. Oh. Thomas raised an eyebrow. And what would you know about corporate takeovers? Well, I smiled slightly. It's generally good practice to make sure the target company is actually for sale before planning its restructuring. Of course it's for sale. My firm has inside information. Had inside information, I corrected. Until about 20 minutes ago when the board approved a different buyer. Thomas's fork clattered against his plate. What are you talking about? You see, while you were busy broadcasting your takeover plans, someone else was quietly buying up shares through various shell companies. As of— I checked my watch, exactly 18 minutes ago, that someone acquired controlling interest in Metropolitan Hospital Group. That's impossible. Thomas sputtered. Who would dare interfere with our deal? The front door chimed and our housekeeper hurried to answer it. Moments later, Dr. Sarah Chin, Metropolitan's hospital director, rushed into the dining room. Dr. Peterson. The board meeting. They're waiting for you to start your first session as chairman and CEO. The dining room froze in a tableau of shock. Mom's coffee cup crashed to the floor, spreading a dark stain across her precious Persian rug. Thomas's face cycled through shades of red while Dad's fork remained suspended halfway to his mouth. I'm sorry, Dr. Chin continued, seemingly oblivious to the family drama. But the board is eager to begin implementing your 5-year strategic plan. The media is already requesting statements about the acquisition. Acquisition. Thomas found his voice, though it cracked slightly. What acquisition? I stood up, straightening my tie. The one I've been orchestrating for the past 3 years. You see, while you were bragging about summer homes, I was building a healthcare investment group. Every long shift you mocked? I was learning hospital operations from the ground up. That waste of time research led to patents worth billions. Billions. Mom whispered, coffee forgotten. Dr. Peterson's medical innovations have revolutionized emergency care, Dr. Chin explained proudly. The patents alone are valued at $4.2 billion. That's partly how he funded the acquisition. Thomas lunged for his phone, frantically pulling up financial news. His face went from red to pale as he read the headlines. Breaking. Metropolitan Hospital Group acquired by Peterson Medical Innovations. Wall Street shocked as doctor-led investment group outmaneuvers major PE firms. Healthcare visionary takes control of largest hospital network. But our deal, Thomas stammered, was never going to happen, I finished for him. I made sure of that. The board preferred my vision of expanding healthcare access over your plan to trim the fat. Dr. Chin nodded. The voting wasn't even close. 12-0 in favor of Dr. Peterson's acquisition. Dad finally lowered his fork. Son, where did you get the resources? Remember that worthless research into emergency response algorithms? Google bought the rights for $1.8 billion. The new treatment protocols I developed, licensed to every major hospital in the country. That waste of time, free clinic program, proved so effective that the Gates Foundation gave us $500 million to expand it. Thomas was still scrolling through news articles, his hands shaking. The purchase price. This says $7.3 billion? 7.5 actually, I corrected. The extra $200 million is for the immediate implementation of my healthcare accessibility program. You know, the one you called wasteful spending. Mom's coffee cup lay forgotten as she stared at me. But you drive that old Honda. Because I believe in living modestly and investing in what matters, I replied. Though I do own the building your summer house is in, Thomas. Along with most of that block. The real estate division of my company acquired it last year. Your company? Thomas choked. Dr. Chin pulled up some figures on her tablet. Peterson Medical Innovations is now valued at approximately $12 billion, following today's acquisition. We're already receiving partnership offers from major healthcare providers worldwide. 12 billion. Dad's voice was barely a whisper. Which reminds me, I turned to Thomas, you might want to update your resume. Given that I now own the hospital network your firm was trying to acquire, your position might be a bit awkward. Thomas collapsed back into his chair. This can't be happening. Oh, it's happening, I assured him. And those efficiency cuts you were planning? We're making them, starting with overpaid investment bankers who don't understand healthcare. Dr. Chin checked her watch. Sir, the press conference is in 30 minutes. And the governor is waiting to discuss the statewide implementation of your healthcare accessibility program. The governor? Mom squeaked. Yes. Right after my call with the Secretary of Health and Human Services about taking the model national. I straightened my jacket. Dr. Chin, please have the car brought around. We shouldn't keep the board waiting. Of course, sir. Though, several news outlets are asking about the rumored Nobel Prize nomination. Thomas made a sound like a deflating balloon. We'll discuss that later, I said, gathering my things. Family dinner's been illuminating. 1 month later, I sat in my new office atop the Metropolitan Hospital building, reviewing the latest implementation reports of our healthcare innovation programs. The wall of windows offered a panoramic view of the medical campus I now controlled, including the new research center being built where the executive parking lot used to be. A gentle knock interrupted my work. Dr. Peterson, your family is here for the requested meeting. Send them in, Dr. Chin. They entered hesitantly, quite a change from their previous confident struts. Thomas, notably absent his designer suit, wore business casual that screamed, job interview. Mom had replaced her usual jewelry with a simple pearl necklace, while Dad seemed to have aged years in the past month. Please sit, I gestured to the chairs facing my desk. The office, once a shrine to corporate excess under the previous administration, now featured medical innovation awards, research acknowledgements, and a prominent display of patient success stories. Interesting changes you've made, Dad commented, eyeing the Nobel Prize nomination letter framed on the wall. Just aligning our facilities with our mission, I replied, pulling up the monthly reports on my holographic display. Would you like to see what your nobody doctor has been up to? Thomas shifted uncomfortably as the statistics floated in the air. Asterisk patient satisfaction. Up 85%. Asterisk treatment costs. Down 60%. Asterisk research breakthroughs. 12 major innovations in 1 month. Asterisk stock value. Increased 140%. Asterisk employee satisfaction. Highest in industry. Asterisk healthcare accessibility. Expanded to 300,000 new patients. But the profit margins. Thomas couldn't help himself. Have exceeded all projections, I finished. Turns out, putting patients before profits actually increases both. Our new model is being studied by Harvard Business School, your alma mater, right, Thomas? He flushed deep red. Of course, I continued, they're more interested in our healthcare innovations than our financial success. Speaking of which, Dr. Chin, how's the national rollout going? She consulted her tablet. The White House task force approved implementation in all 50 states. The UN representatives arrive next week to study the model for global adaptation. And the Gates Foundation doubled their funding after seeing the preliminary results. Mom's hands twisted in her lap. The Christmas Charity Gala has been transformed into a medical innovation showcase, I said. Instead of spending millions on caviar and champagne, we're funding breakthrough treatments for rare diseases. Last week's event raised $300 million for pediatric cancer research. But the social connections, she protested weakly, are stronger than ever. Though now we're connecting with people who actually want to change the world, not just brag about their summer homes. I glanced at Thomas. Speaking of which, how's the Hamptons property? He stared at his shoes. The bank foreclosed. Ah yes, after your firm's failed takeover attempt led to that unfortunate stock collapse. Interesting how markets react when overconfident investors overplay their hands. Dad cleared his throat. Son, about the family trust's medical investments have been redirected to support actual medical innovation rather than corporate profits, I finished. The returns are quite impressive. Dr. Chin. The trust's healthcare portfolio has grown 340% since the redistribution, she reported. Though more importantly, the funded research has led to 3 breakthrough treatments for previously untreatable conditions. Thomas finally found his voice. About my resume. Yes, I received it. Along with your application for the junior administrative position. I pulled up his file. Interesting career pivot. From planning to dismantle hospitals to wanting to help run one. I thought, given the family connection. We don't do nepotism here, I cut him off. Every position is earned on merit. Though, I surveyed him thoughtfully, we do have an opening in the community outreach program. Entry level, working directly with the patients you once dismissed as unnecessary expenses. His face fluctuated between humiliation and desperate hope. You'll start at the bottom, I continued. Learning healthcare from the ground up like I did. Minimum wage for the first year. No corner office, no executive privileges. Just honest work helping people heal. I'll take it, he whispered. Mom's eyes widened. Thomas. Working for minimum wage. Actually, I corrected, working for something more valuable than money. Understanding what healthcare really means. The same lesson I learned while you all mocked my career choices. Dr. Chin interjected with another update. Sir, the WHO director is on line 1 about implementing your model in developing nations. And Time magazine needs to confirm the cover shoot for their Person of the Year issue. Dad's hands gripped his armrests. Time magazine? They're featuring our healthcare revolution, I explained. Though I'm more proud of yesterday's results. 1,000 children received life-saving treatments they couldn't previously afford. That's worth more than any magazine cover. I stood up, adjusting my white coat over my suit. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have rounds to make. Unlike some executives, I still practice medicine. It keeps me connected to what really matters. But you own the hospital, Mom stuttered. Why would you still treat patients? Because I'm a doctor first and a businessman second. Something Thomas might learn in his new position. I turned to Dr. Chin. Please show my brother to HR. He can start by shadowing our emergency room staff. See healthcare from the other side of the spreadsheet. As they filed out, I noticed Thomas pause by the wall of patient thank you letters. For the first time, I saw something replace the arrogance in his eyes. Perhaps understanding, perhaps regret. Alex, he said quietly, using my first name instead of little brother, for the first time in years. I was wrong about you. No, I replied. You were wrong about what matters. Money is easy to make, Thomas. Making a difference, that's the real challenge. After they left, I stood at the window watching the bustling medical campus below. In the courtyard, patients walked in the healing garden that had replaced the executive parking lot. Through the corridors, doctors and nurses moved efficiently, unburdened by corporate bureaucracy. From the research wing came reports of new treatments, developed without profit pressure. And in every room people were being healed, not because of their wealth but because of their need. My old stethoscope hung on the wall, a reminder of where I started and why. Beside it, the headlines told the story of transformation. Asterisk, healthcare revolutionary. How one doctor changed medicine. Asterisk, metropolitan miracle. Profits rise as costs fall. Asterisk, medical vision. Local doctor becomes global health leader. Asterisk, from ER to empire. The doctor who redefined healthcare. But the most important display wasn't the headlines or awards. It was the live patient care metrics showing lives being saved right now because we'd chosen healing over profit. I picked up my stethoscope. It was time for rounds. After all, I hadn't built this to be a suit. I'd built it to be a better doctor. And somewhere in the emergency room my brother was about to learn the same lesson I had. Sometimes the biggest success comes from helping others, not helping yourself. You'll always be a nobody, Mom declared over Sunday dinner, her voice dripping with disappointment. 30 years old, and what do you have to show for it? A tiny apartment and some mysterious consulting job. I pushed my food around the plate, letting their words wash over me like they had for the past decade. The massive penthouse where I actually lived would probably give them a heart attack. Not that they'd ever see it, they hadn't earned that privilege. Even your cousin Michael just made partner at his law firm, Dad added, as if I hadn't heard about Michael's success at every family gathering for the past year. Meanwhile, you're still, what exactly are you doing, Alex? Investment consulting, I replied simply, knowing they wouldn't bother to ask for details. They never did. If you'd just taken that junior accounting position I offered. Dad started. The one paying $45,000 a year? I smiled, thinking about the deals I'd closed that morning alone. No thanks. I'm doing fine. Mom sniffed disapprovingly. Fine? That rattling Toyota you drive says otherwise. And that apartment in that awful neighborhood. Yes, my props. The carefully maintained illusion of struggling that kept them from asking too many questions. They'd never guessed that the awful neighborhood apartment was just an address I kept for appearances, or that the Toyota was purely for visits to their house. Speaking of business, Dad straightened importantly, we're meeting some potential investors tomorrow. High net worth clients interested in our new development project. The Leopold Building downtown. I nearly choked on my water. The Leopold Building. My building, purchased through one of my holding companies 3 months ago. The one they were desperately trying to acquire for their struggling real estate firm. Really? I managed, hiding my amusement. Sounds interesting. Not that you'd understand the complexities, Mom waved dismissively. Real estate development takes experience, connections, actual business skills. Right? I nodded, checking my phone under the table. A message from my building manager. Your parents' firm requested a meeting tomorrow. Should be entertaining. We should get going, Dad announced, standing. Big day tomorrow. Maybe someday, Alex, if you apply yourself, you'll understand what real success looks like. I hugged them goodbye, playing my role perfectly. The disappointing child, the underachiever, the nobody they'd always predicted I'd be. If they'd bothered to read any financial news in the past 5 years, they might have noticed the rising star in private equity. The mysterious investor whose holding companies were quietly acquiring prime real estate across the city. But that would have required them to look beyond their own narrow definition of success. In my Aston Martin, safely parked 2 blocks away, I called my building manager. Tomorrow should be interesting, he chuckled. What's the play? Standard protocol, I replied, starting the engine. They'll need owner's permission to access the building. I'll be watching from my office. The penthouse office they don't know exists? Exactly. I pulled onto the highway, leaving their suburban certainties behind. Make sure security knows. No special treatment, no exceptions. They want to see the building's owner? They'll have to work for it. Like they made you work for their approval? Something like that, I smiled, thinking about tomorrow. Sometimes success isn't about proving people wrong. It's about watching them realize how wrong they've been all along. The city lights blurred past as I drove toward my actual home, the penthouse suite of the Leopold Building. The same building my parents thought they could acquire with their outdated business model and inflated sense of importance. My phone buzzed again, another message from my financial advisor. Morgan Stanley deal closed. $240 million profit. Your parents' entire net worth wouldn't cover the commission. Funny how life works out. While they were busy telling everyone about cousin Michael's prestigious $180,000 partner salary, I was closing deals that could buy his entire law firm 100 times over. I pulled into my private garage beneath the Leopold, nodding to James, the security chief who'd become a trusted confidant in my game of appearances. Good dinner with the family? He asked, already smirking. Oh, you know, I laughed, stepping into my private elevator. The usual. I'm a disappointment. A nobody should have taken Dad's generous offer to work in his failing company. If they only knew they were having dinner with the person who owns half their city's premium real estate. 3/4 actually, I corrected. Closed on the Riverside development this morning. The elevator opened directly into my penthouse, 12,000 square feet of luxury that would make my parents' McMansion look like a guest house. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city I was quietly acquiring, piece by premium piece. My assistant Sarah was waiting with updates. Your parents' firm filed their meeting request. They're bringing their entire executive team, plus some supposed investors. Actually just their golf club friends with mediocre credit scores. I loosened my tie, the cheap one I wore for family dinners, and pulled up the Leopold security feeds on my wall of screens. Time to prepare for tomorrow's show. Are the cameras in the lobby ready? All set. We can record every delicious moment of their realization. Walking to my private office, I passed walls lined with magazine covers and articles my parents had never seen, or more likely, never bothered to look for. 30 Under 30. The secret real estate mogul transforming downtown. Mystery investor's empire exceeds $5 billion. The new face of private equity. Success in stealth mode. My name was never mentioned, I'd made sure of that. The articles used pseudonyms, silhouettes, the carefully crafted persona I'd built while my parents were busy lamenting my lack of ambition. Sarah followed with her tablet. Should I prepare the usual rejection of purchase offer letter for their firm? No, I smiled, an idea forming. Tomorrow deserves something special. Have legal draw up a full response, detailing every failed project they've managed, every defaulted loan, every investor they've disappointed. Make it clear that the owner of the Leopold doesn't deal with, what did Mom call me? Nobodies. That's deliciously cruel, Sarah grinned. Want me to have it delivered during their meeting? Perfect timing. I settled into my chair, overlooking the city that increasingly belonged to me. Oh, and Sarah, make sure the security team knows, when they inevitably demand to speak to the building's owner. Let me guess, you'll be too busy counting your billions to meet with unsuccessful developers? Something like that. I picked up the cheap tie I'd worn to dinner, tossing it in the trash. Tomorrow they learn what real success looks like. Even if they don't know it's their nobody child teaching them the lesson. The next morning, I watched through my private security feed as my parents' entourage arrived at the Leopold building. Mom in her outdated Chanel suit, Dad sporting his power tie, and their small parade of golf club investors, all blissfully unaware that their net worth combined wouldn't cover my monthly property tax bill. They're here, Sarah announced unnecessarily, barely containing her glee. Should I cue up the security protocol? Let's watch the show, I replied, settling into my ergonomic chair that cost more than Dad's car. The lobby camera showed James, our head of security, approaching their group with practiced professionalism. I turned up the audio. Good morning, he said formally. How may I assist you? Dad stepped forward, oozing the false confidence I'd watched him perfect over years of failing upward. We have a meeting scheduled. Harrison Development Group. Ah yes, James consulted his tablet. I'm afraid there's been a change in protocol. All potential buyers need explicit permission from the owner to access the building's executive floors. Mom's perfectly maintained facade cracked slightly. But we have a scheduled appointment. Surely you can't mean. Owner's orders, James replied smoothly. Very private individual. Very particular about who gets access. Do you know who we are? Dad's voice rose slightly. Harrison Development is one of the most respected firms in the city. I smirked, pulling up their company's real financials on my screen. 3 failed projects in the last year. 2 defaulted loans. A credit rating that made student debt look attractive. Of course, sir, James continued, his poker face perfect. However, the owner's protocol is quite strict. Perhaps you'd like to submit a formal request for a meeting with the owner first. This is outrageous. Mom's voice hit that particular pitch she reserved for special disappointment. We are serious buyers. Who does this owner think they are? Through another camera, I watched their investors shifting uncomfortably. They'd probably been promised an easy deal, a quick profit. Instead, they were getting a lesson in how real power operates. Sarah appeared with my morning coffee, served in a cup that cost more than the luxury watch Dad bragged about. The rejection letter is ready. Want me to have it delivered now? Not yet, I replied, watching the lobby drama unfold. Let them stew a bit longer. Dad was now demanding to speak to someone in charge, his face turning that particular shade of red I remembered from childhood lectures about real success. I am in charge of building security, James replied calmly. And without the owner's explicit permission, I cannot allow you access to the executive floors. Well, how do we contact this owner? One of their investors spoke up, already sounding defeated. The owner reviews all requests personally, James explained. Though I should mention, they're particularly selective about meeting with firms that have challenging financial histories. Mom's hand flew to her pearls, the fake ones she'd been passing off as real at country club gatherings. What exactly are you implying? Simply stating policy, ma'am. James smiled professionally. Though if you'd like, I can have our legal team send over a detailed explanation of why your firm might not meet the owner's standards for potential buyers. Perfect timing, I murmured, nodding to Sarah. She pressed a button on her tablet, and I watched as a security assistant approached the group with a thick envelope. For Harrison Development, the assistant announced. From the owner's legal team. Dad snatched the envelope, his hands shaking slightly as he tore it open. I zoomed in the camera, savoring every micro-expression as he read the first page. This is, he sputtered. A comprehensive analysis of why Harrison Development doesn't qualify for a meeting with the owner, James finished helpfully. Including a rather thorough review of your recent business challenges. The investors were already edging toward the door, suddenly very interested in their phones. Mom's makeup couldn't quite hide her rising panic. This is impossible, Dad was still muttering, flipping through the pages that detailed every failure, every misstep, every questionable decision his company had made. How did they get this information? I smiled, remembering all the family dinners where they dismissed my computer hobby. Amazing what you can learn when you understand modern data analytics, a concept their firm still treated like science fiction. Sir, James continued, perfectly playing his role, the owner also asked me to remind you that the Leopold building isn't interested in partnerships with, how did they phrase it? He checked his tablet. Ah yes, developers whose greatest success was 20 years ago. Mom snatched the papers from Dad's trembling hands. These numbers, these details, this is private information. Not to someone who knows where to look, I murmured to my empty penthouse office, watching them unravel through my wall of screens. Sarah appeared with another update. Their investors are already calling their brokers. Seems they're not interested in backing Harrison Development anymore. Should I show you their stock price? Put it on the main screen. The numbers told a beautiful story. Harrison Development's already struggling stock dropping in real time as word of their rejections spread through financial circles. My parents had always taught me that reputation was everything in business. They were about to learn just how right they were. Perhaps, James was saying in the lobby, you'd like to submit a formal request for a meeting with the owner? Though I should mention, they're currently in their penthouse office and I believe their schedule is rather full with more promising opportunities. My phone buzzed, a message from Mom. Alex, honey, are you free for lunch? We need to discuss some family business opportunities. There was. When all else failed, when their precious reputation was crumbling, they suddenly remembered their unsuccessful child. Probably hoping my mysterious consulting job might offer some insight into the Leopold's owner. We demand to speak to whoever's up there. Dad's voice had reached that particular tone that used to make me flinch at family dinners. Now it just amused me. James glanced up directly at one of my cameras, though they didn't notice, and smiled slightly. I'm afraid the owner is quite busy. Currently watching some fascinating security footage. I pressed the intercom button, disguising my voice slightly. Everything all right in the lobby, James? The effect was electric. My parents froze. Their remaining investors perked up. Even the cleaning staff paused to watch. Just explaining our protocols to some unsuccessful developers, James replied smoothly. Ah, Harrison Development, my modified voice echoed through the lobby. Please remind them that unlike their family relationships, business success requires more than just showing up and demanding respect. Mom's face went pale. Dad's power tie suddenly looked like it was choking him. You can see us? Mom managed, looking around frantically. I see everything in my building, I replied, enjoying every second. Including desperate developers trying to save their failing company with other people's money. Though I'm curious, do you treat all your business prospects the way you treat your children? Dismissing their potential until you need something from them. The lobby fell silent. Through my screens I could see the exact moment they began to wonder, to question, to fear. Who are you? Dad demanded, but his voice had lost its authority. I pressed another button, sending their complete financial history scrolling across the lobby's digital displays. Every failed project, every missed opportunity, every dismissive comment about modern business practices coming back to haunt them. Someone you taught a valuable lesson, I replied. That success doesn't always look the way people expect. That sometimes the nobodies are quietly building empires while others are bragging about their country club memberships. Now, if you'll excuse me, I concluded through the intercom, I have a lunch meeting with some actually successful developers. Though I hear your cousin Michael's law firm is hiring junior paralegals, perhaps that would be more your speed. The security feed showed them shuffling out, shoulders slumped, reputations in tatters. Their investors had already disappeared, probably calling their brokers to dump Harrison Development stock. Later that evening, I received another desperate message from Mom. Alex, please, we really need to talk about some opportunities. I smiled, closing my laptop. Sometimes the best revenge isn't telling people who you've become. It's letting them wonder if they've been looking down on their biggest mistake or their worst nightmare. And sometimes, success isn't about proving people wrong. It's about building something so magnificent that their opinions become as irrelevant as their outdated business practices.